have some discussion with the faculty members on some issues. Akiko-san is the program director of the Asia Peace Initiative partner of Sasakawa Peace Foundation based in Tokyo. And Sasakawa Peace Foundation is one of the largest foundation in Japan who works with so many partners across the globe, including Asia and Indonesia as well. She's done a lot of research, and then she's very knowledgeable on Indonesia. She speaks Bahasa very well. So our international student is a challenge for you because she quickly learned Bahasa Indonesia. And then she's done a lot of research on Indonesia as well. Now, today, our topic is women and conflict resolution in Patani and Ambon. And as we know, these are two places where, you know, in Ambon, more or less, it's been resolved. In Patani, it seems that, you know, things are still going on, but we would hear more from Akiko-san about the situation. But yet, I think for those who are working on peace research, they know very well that what we want is that not negative peace. That is, you know, if there is no conflict and we assume there is peace, I don't think that's something that we are aiming for. What we want is a full transformation of conflict-prone areas into a real peaceful situation where you have a balance and then you have a lively, safe for everyone in that particular conflict areas. Now, without further ado, I would like to invite Akiko-san to present your thoughts on the topic that we are going to discuss today.
Okay.
The floor is yours.
Thank you so much. So many international students also, or
all right,
how many? Yeah, Indonesian and how many?
Yeah. Well, maybe before we start, I forgot. This is a new university, and as you know, and Toru Kimura-san know that we started. This is a graduate institute, so our students are master's students coming from 20 countries this year. But we are going to have more students coming in September. We are going to provide 200 master's scholarship and 100 PhD. So in September, we are going to have 300 new international students, I mean, coming from, I don't know, but right now it's 20 countries. So these are the students, and maybe later on in the, you can have an exchange with them.
Yeah, but which countries, for example? India and
Egypt,
Indonesia, Philippines.
Right. Thank you so much. Thank you very much, Professor Phillips. And then I come from Sasakawa Peace Foundation in Japan, and actually I was in Malaysia, then also East Timor this time, because I attend also the inauguration, presidential inauguration ceremony for the Ramos Horta. Maybe you know that East Timor. Then I come to Indonesia. So thank you very much for this opportunity. And then today I just want to, you know, explain a little bit of Patani conflict, especially. I will also explain a little bit of Ambon, but the more focus on Patani issues. Because many, even Southeast Asia students, mean that Southeast Asia people don't know about Patani conflict, not only just from India or, you know, that other part of the world, but not so many people know about Patani conflict. But I think it is also good to know, because now we're already 21st century, but still a lot of conflict within Southeast Asia. Then maybe you can learn from these structural causes of the conflict. Maybe you can learn from the other part of the world, also very similar situations. So I just want to explain, you know, especially for the Patani conflict today, and also related to the role of women, you know. So then I think that many people also bisa bahasa Indonesia juga. No, belum. I think it is good because Indonesia is a huge country and many people actually speak Bahasa, not only Indonesia, And Indonesia, I mean, Indonesia, also Malaysia, if you can speak Bahasa, you can communicate with Malaysians also. And also Patani also, the south part of Thailand, they also speak Malay, you know. So I think it is good to know also to learn Bahasa. Yeah? Well, I just want to introduce myself. And then I also want to say a little bit on Ambon, because I got a PhD on the core area studies, you know, not the political science or sociology, but area studies, which is concentrate on the one area specifically, but especially on the conflict analysis and peace building is my focus. Then now I'm also working at the Sasaga Peace Foundation, but I'm also teaching several universities in Japan, especially like Southeast Asia studies. You know? So it means that politics in the Southeast Asia, especially, and a lot of issue what happened in Southeast Asia. Also the peace building and conflict analysis and that kind of things. So we say peace building, actually it's a huge norm, peace building, according to UN. Yeah? But peace building, we can say that preventive diplomacy, also one of the peace building, also peacemaking, peacekeeping, and post-conflict peace building, mean that more development aid or reconstruction, that kind of things is the more peace building, you know. And Japanese government actually focus on the post-conflict peace building. So mean that maybe you know that Japanese government is, building a street or a bridge, port, you know, that kind of development aid. But after the conflict, you know. So that's also many Japanese government and Japanese agencies focus on. But now we are at the Sasaga Peace Foundation, we are focusing on more peacemaking phase, meaning that during the conflict, we go and enter, then somehow not mediate as a big man, you know, but supporting peace mediation, you know, itself. So there are so many discussions now that which kind of peace mediation should be. Because of after Afghanistan, you know, for example, America come in the middle, or someone come in the middle, then do some top-down approach of the, peace building. It's not work, doesn't work, right? So which kind of mediation also peace building should be? That is also very important discussion within the peace building. But anyway, I just want to focus on the Southeast Asia, you know. So that is just, I put it several circles, but I just want to say that within the 21st century, there are so many, conflicts. And Indonesia is one of the, definitely largest country within the Southeast Asia. But after the Suharto regime, is a dictator, regime finished, then there are so many conflicts within Indonesia. Then actually, I focus on the Maluku conflict. So I just want to show that there is some, yes, you see this. Here is around this is Maluku. You know, now we are in Jakarta, in Java, right? Java Island, right? But it's the east part of Indonesia. There are also the conflict since 1999. But it was a more focus on the issue of religion. You know? So Christian community versus Muslim community fighting each other, meaning that more communal conflict, or we can say horizontal conflict. No? I don't go to the in detail so much about Ambon conflict, but many younger generation of the Indonesian also doesn't know, are there conflict in Maluku, you know? But since 1999 January, very small, dispute on the Idul Fitri Muslim holiday and started the violence, big violence, and then spread many places within Ambon Island and other part of the islands too. Then the interesting thing is Muslim jihadists called Laskar Jihad created in Java and Sumatra, then come to Ambon and fight for Muslim communities, protect Muslim community together. No? And also international mujahideen also arrive in Maluku. So it's kind of like issue become a religion, because the Maluku people mostly same ethnic, ethnicity is the same, but a different religion because of the Dutch colonial. So here it's very much related to the history. Then after the a lot of conflict, then there are Marino peace agreement, and then but still conflict continue around until 2006. But since 2005 until 2007 or 8, I lived in Ambon Island for 2 years. So because of Japanese, so the Muslim community also accept me, also Christian community accept me, because they also cannot identify what is my religion, because Japan, maybe as you know that Japan, you can say, what is your religion? So maybe Buddhist, maybe Shinto, so not clear really actually. So, but I was, learning about Islam. So of course, in the Muslim community, they are very much welcome to accept me, and then stay the homestay, with the community. So it was a really interesting experience for me, because just after the conflict, so it's still really infrastructure is broken, everything, and then it's a really hard time. But I can, spend the time with the family. In Ambon, in the city, I mean, in the village, so it is really interesting experience for me. Then you can see that when I was there, I took a picture. The Christian community and Muslim community is, because of the war, more than we are learning that 10,000 were killed, and then 330,000 were displaced, and then another 160,000 fled to other provinces. So a lot of, IDPs, internal displaced peoples within Indonesia during the conflict. So it was a big, conflict, but not so many Japanese also know about this conflict, and another word also, because not only just Maluku at that time, there is a Poso, also Kalimantan, Aceh, East Timor, Papua, everywhere the conflict in Indonesia at that time. So I can say the very similar like Myanmar, the transition to the democracy. Then actually I start to study on Ambon conflict, but also start to study Poso in the central Sulawesi, and go to Poso and do some research. Also the West Kalimantan, also start to go to Aceh, and then also the Philippines, also that the Mindanao, that I also start to learn about the peace process and then the conflict. But then I start to concentrate to work for the Patani, Southern Thailand conflict. And many people maybe don't know, that's why I just want to show that map also. That the Patani people mean that the people who live there call themselves Patani people, Orang Patani, So that area is a kind of purple color in the border between Malaysia and Thailand. That is the Thailand territory right now, but they are Malay Muslims. So within Thailand, in the south part of the region is 80%, 90% is the Muslims and speak Malay. Of course, very strong dialect, but many people study in Malaysia and Indonesia. So somehow I can communicate without any translators, So they speak Malay, and Muslim community within Thailand. So then since 2004, kind of escalation of the violence within these regions, So what happened there is, that is, I think, very important to understand, not only just Patani conflict, but other areas, other countries' conflicts too. But in Patani, that area, around 16th century, it was a big, kind of biggest port city called Patani Kingdom, Sultanate Patani, there. So it's a glory of the history of, their histories. Then, but because of the, war with the Thai, Thai was intervened since 1786. And then current border decided by Anglo-Sham Treaty. What does it mean? That Anglo is England, and then Sham is current Thai. So they put the border, 1909. But here it's very important to remember again that history So maybe here is not only just the Southeast Asia, students. So I just want to ask you that who are the, the colony of Malaysia?
British.
British, yes, right? So how about Burma, Myanmar?
Burma, British.
British, yes. And how about Laos, Vietnam, Cambodia?
Vietnam, maybe Japanese.
And they brought it later, yes. But France,
French.
okay, French colony of the Vietnam, Laos, Cambodia, right? And then the Indonesia,
Dutch.
Dutch, Dutch colony. So at that time, there are so many, big power from the West, come to the Southeast Asia and then colonize the area. But how about Thailand? Yes, Thailand somehow keep as the independent countries, no? So because of the Burmese, that the Myanmar is England, and then the Malaysia is also England, and this part, the east part, Vietnam, Laos, Cambodia is French. So they don't want to attack directly, right? So the Thailand is a kind of the middle, So Thailand somehow could keep as an independent country. So the England and then Thai kingdom make a deal, and then they wanted to put the very concrete national border, mean that nation state building start. So the modern nation state, Before the modern nation state, they have a territory, idea of territory, but not really clear border. From here to here is my territory, from here to there. Not like that, around that area, this is my territory, But because of the Europeans' colonialism, and they put the border, clear border. Then what happened is, I will show you later that here maybe, this is a very small river, right? And I'm standing in the Thai side. You can see over there is the Malaysia side. So it's a very small river, but they put the border there. So just I want to say is the river is not to divide people. The river actually is coming people. So this side and that side, there are a lot of friends or family. But because of England came, and then they put the border with the river. So the north part, you can see the map also. North part, the purple color. North part, there is a Patani kingdom, but because of the river, they divided north and south, right? North part go to the Thailand, south part go to the Malaysia. But the river is like this, So we can, they're the friends or family is this side and that side. So that's why important thing is who put this border, Big power. That time the colonial is making a big power. Put the border, So that history also very important because this is also the very much causes of the conflict. And not only this part of the world, like Patani, but for example, Rohingya issues now in Myanmar is a border between, Myanmar and Bangladesh. Also, there's a river and divided, right? But there's a Rohingya people live there, and then the west side and the east side. People are saying, but the big power puts the border. That's why they divided. Currently, different nation state, So that kind of things happens everywhere, all over the world. So this history is so important to remember again, Then why they are fighting? Actually fighting for self-determination, also freedom and justice, So that's why Patani people demand protection of their dignity, recognition of Patani culture, history, and language. Why? Because of the Thailand start to have assimilation policies, and then building as nation states. So they, insist Patani people to talk only Thai, and they have to change their name also, like a Malay Muslim name to the looks like Thai name. Also on the street, there are a lot of Malay word name of the street, but they also change to the Thai name, So there are a lot of assimilation policy happen during the nation state building. So the Patani people resist from this occupation by Tiger government. So since 2004, more than 7,500 people have died, because of this escalation of the violence. So just I want to repeat it here that there are people who disagree with these current borders. Not only just the Patani people, but so many. For example, happened in East Timor, for example, or what happened also Aceh, what happened Papua. That is also very difficult, the question within Indonesia. But also how about the Philippines in Mindanao, or Sulu, So that's why within the Southeast Asia, there are so many, people who actually disagree with this current national borders, nation states. Not only just the Southeast Asia, but all over the world. That's just I want to say. Then those people actually seeking liberation, independence, free from this current rules, Why? Again, I want to just repeat that most of Southeast Asia countries experience colonial rules, and they to decide the border by big power, and that's the important thing, ignoring the local context such as ethnicity, religion, and history of the region. Then just divide it. So that is really, how to say, the real cause of the conflict. So the Patani conflict, many people think that, Patani people are Muslims, and then Thai people are Buddhists. So this is a religious conflict. So Buddhists versus Muslims. But actually, this is more on the self-determination issues and more ethnic issues, because they are fight for the Malay, identity, and then they also want to show that the dignity of Malay cultures. So this is a kind of the frame of the conflict. Then people are obviously, demanding the justice, equality, and then free from the oppressions. So why? Because of those assimilation policy within the nation state period. What is assimilation policy actually? That is happen all over the world when they created the nation state. So usually spread a single centralized language, and then ignoring that the language and culture, and then ignoring diversity, So that is one of the main structural causes of many of the current ethnic conflict. So that's why they think that it's better to independence from this occupation. So the people demand protection of their dignity, so recognition, of their own culture, history, and language, of course, So that's why, for example, within the Southeast Asia, still many conflicts, Papua also, just like I said, Patani, and also Cham, or Bangsamoro, or Myanmar now, so many conflicts, So that happens many area of the Southeast Asia. Then just I want to introduce that about during the current situation of Patani. Because of the COVID, I'm sure that I also could fly to Indonesia finally. But usually I, almost every 2 months or, come to Indonesia. But because we have a lot of program, we have a lot of, friends also here. But because of the COVID, I could not come here. And also I'm every 2 months maybe visited Patani or Malaysia and meet with the, people there. But what happened is current situation. I just want to, because I was there in March finally, so I heard about the situation. I didn't say so much about just the causes of the conflict, but I didn't say so much about actors. In Patani, because of the accumulating the frustration from the people, that's why the Patani people create the armed group. Those armed group actually put the bomb or shooting within the region. Then the Thai military, around like currently 60,000, military force in Patani. And then there are so many, checkpoints everywhere in Patani. Then did I put it? No. Within the Patani, since 2005, there is the emergency degree and martial law applied. So the martial law and the emergency degree, so the Thai military can arrest whoever, without warrant. So they just come and they're the suspect, and people just arrest. So there are a lot of torture case, also a lot of extrajudicial killing case within Patani. So that is really a serious problem now, against human rights. So even during the COVID pandemic, what I heard that within the 3 provinces in Patani, during the emergency degree and the martial law applied that area, according to one of the NGOs, say that 57 cases of extrajudicial killing, include the shooting, military and then the armed group. That also includes, but anyway, extrajudicial killing without any court process, And then almost 300 people have either arrested or taken to the jail or to flee to Malaysia. So I show you that that this is a small river, right? So the armed group fighting within the Thailand, but if they're the suspect and they just cross the river and go to Malaysia. Once they enter the Malaysia, Thai government cannot do anything, right? So many armed group come and back Malaysia and Thailand because just border is like this. Then one of the biggest armed group is called BRN, Barisan Revolusi Nasional. And this armed group, many leaders live in Malaysia already, live in Malaysia. And then but a lot of operation, of course, within the Thailand. But the interesting thing is like also Aceh, also other part of the Indonesia also, but they don't put the bomb, for example, in Bangkok. They fight only within Patani. Why? Because they say that please go out from my land. This is our land, Patani land. The Thai government, Thai military occupied, come and control us. So they want to put the bomb versus Thai military only. And the message is, please go out from Patani. So anyway, there are a lot of bombing and extrajudicial killing, the shooting, but also from the Thai side, a lot of extrajudicial killing, also torture case. So there are a lot of people who are put in the jail, but also free to Malaysia. So mean that 57 cases mean that passed away, and almost 300 people disappear from the home. Mean that they're the white, mean that maybe widows or the women who don't have a husband in front of them suddenly, right? Also, there are a lot of children. So this one I heard from the civil society within Patani, and they say that many women's group are helping those widows and children and orphans, but it's really difficult, because suddenly mentally problem, because women also surprised that husband disappeared suddenly or passed away, and it's also difficult to deal with this situation, right? But women have to take care of children and so on. So that's why not only just the people just die, but as a community also a lot of problems, Then there are so many military come to the house suddenly and then do some DNA testing, get some some material and then bring to get the data, because of the suspect. So that is also very threatening to the women and children. And then there are a lot of Muslim kind of kindergarten, Muslim schools to teach Al-Quran and so on for Tadika. those groups also military come in and check, So that's why, because of the man is mostly free to Malaysia or arrest, then there are no men teachers. So that's why women start to teach in the Tadika school. But again, the militaries come in and then check. So that is also very much traumatic experience for them and also for the children. So that kind of, abuse still happens within the Patani during the COVID also. So that's why they are very much concerned on this kind of human rights issues. When before the COVID, I often go to the Patani and then meet with the peoples, and Thai government called red zone. Red zone means that so many armed group live there. No? But in the red zone, you rarely see men. So the most of the red zone, there are so many. Only women or very old guy or children. Why? Because many people are arrested and were free to Malaysia. So that's why women have to do everything, and the money, take care of the children and elderly peoples. And then, mother is the main provider, of all the family. And they also have to, help the husband if in the jail or go to the Malaysia. So the woman is really busy and then had a many role during this, conflict time. And then women are also victim of the conflicts, right? But within the community, they help each other and that, stronger solidarities. But my point is, that's why woman knows what happened in the field, really, and then they know how to survive also. So they are like a woman actually understand what really happens in the field. So there are so many women's group within Patani, and then I'm working with them because as I told you, woman knows what happened really in the field, and they help each other, and then they the support each other. So they have kind of a stronger solidarity and network. So if they can work for peace, that is really strong, initiative, and good for the community. So I'm working with them, and then many of them also are victim of the conflict, but they can work for others. That is also very, very good. And the women also support victims' families, widows, orphans, and also the poor in the community. And they are the one who knows the best what is happening on the ground and what is necessary to be solved. So the woman's voice is very important for peace in this region. That's why now I'm trying to have kind of making a mechanism to bringing those voices to the peace dialogue. So again, I didn't mention so much about the peace dialogue. Since 2013, actually happening the peace talk, official peace talk between Thai government and what just I call BRN, the armed group, since 2013, and then the facilitating by the Malaysian government. Because of Malaysia, the many armed groups live in Malaysia. So actually, Malaysia is not a neutral position. Malaysia is the kind of a stakeholder, one of the stakeholders. But we cannot ignore Malaysia because they live in Malaysia, right? So the Malaysia is facilitating for the peace talk during the Najib administration. The first is the Thaksin's sisters in-luck administration starts, but then Najib administration also continue for the peace talk. Then the Prime Minister of the Malaysia indicates the facilitator. Then there is official talk between Thai government and the armed group right now since 2013. But of course, peace talk is not easy. So starts dialogue and stop because of the political change. Again restart. But again, stop because the leader changed, So of course, cannot go very easily to the peace dialogue. But this is also another problem that during the peace talk, of course, there are no trust between Thai government and then the armed group, but also not trust also to the Malaysia also. So that's why we are supporting behind the scene, facilitating Thai government and the armed group, that kind of thing. So during the peace talk, they of course talk about the security issues a lot, but they didn't talk so much about those voices, what happened in the field. So I think it is so important, this kind of bottom-up approach for the peace dialogue, mean that bringing the people's voice to the table, peace dialogue. Otherwise, cannot, what Professor Philip said, that just stop the conflict. So mean that negative peace is maybe happen because of the peace talk. But if they didn't bring any voices from the field, we cannot reach the positive peace. So I think it is very important to have a kind of mechanism to bring those people's voice to the table. So that's why we are working on the, a lot of civil society within the Patani, and then also Malaysia, and then also especially women's groups. I want to stop with this slide, but I just want to say that about the international phenomena, that actually there is now a lot of discussion on the WPS. Have you ever heard about WPS agenda?
Yes.
Women, Peace and Security. Actually, in 2000, UN Resolution 1325, and then they decided to UN resolution and then making the WPS agenda. So since 2000 until now, it's 2020, is the 20th anniversary, and 2020, and now is another 20 years, we started. So now it's 2022. Actually, I just come back from America in Washington, D.C. in the early May. And then we discussed a lot about WPS agenda because America already have WPS Act 2017 as foreign policies. It's they put the WPS Act within America. So that's why that America, if they want to do something foreign policies, then they really have to care on the meaningful woman participation, whatever the activities, So that's why the WPS agenda is really discussed a lot within UN, also a lot of in the other part of the world. I'm not, because of the WPS agenda, I am focusing on women, but because of my experience, women's involvement is really important to reach to the positive peace, So the peace. So the inclusive is very important, but usually, among the armed group, there are no women's participation. And then also military, also a lot of men. So men and discuss. And then, of course, only discuss about the security matters, ceasefires, but not talking about welfare, education, people's life, But they have to discuss first, these matters. So women's meaningful participation is really important for success of the peace talk itself. With this understanding, I'm encouraging women, to have more consolidate and then capacity building, because they have a really strong potential, for peace, and then creating a future, leaders. So but I just say that the women are very much busy because all the time have to take up children and the families, providing everything. So then within the Patani, because of the conflict, so the men in the front and woman is following. Japan also actually, but that kind of men also should protect women. That kind of mentalities or culture is very strong. So always woman in the behind and listening. But now we are encouraging the women also to speak out their voices, in front of the people. So to get to empower women, it is so important to get women to understand men's understanding. So without understanding of men, we try to empower women, doesn't work well. So that's why I am also working with a lot of community leaders, NGO leaders, men's leaders, and try to have their understanding and how much benefit for them if women speak up. So that's kind of a way I'm working in the southern Thailand, and somehow it's really women voices are increased, and then I'm very happy to see the progress. But that is also according to the WPS agenda. Studies show that if there are a lot of women's voices and the CSO involving for the peace process, more sustain the peace. So I try to work with them more. Then hopefully that the Patani peace talk goes well, and then also people's voice also bring to the peace table and more sustained peace in the future. So I'm sure that you have a lot of questions, but I just stop here. Then I will take the questions.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Akiko-san, for I think it's a powerful and persuasive argument about the role of women actually in peace building and peacemaking, especially in conflict areas. Because as Akiko-san mentioned, women most of the time are the victims, so they have to be the stakeholders in the peacemaking. And then because they're taking care of various aspects of life, even during conflict period. Now, she touched a lot of ground here that are relevant for our for the students and for our classes. Number one, starting from the definition about peace building, that would include preventive diplomacy, peacemaking, peacekeeping, and post-conflict peace building, and so on. That certainly fall within the area of IR discipline, and then it's cross-disciplinary subject. I think that is that would touch upon the economics, social sciences, and so on, which I think one among the first attitude that we need to have when we are talking about peace, because it should be kind of a cross-border discipline. Secondly, I think Akiko-san touches about the problems of the idea of sovereignty and borders and territory, which sandwich people sometimes, because you are divided along the territorial boundaries, and that sometimes cut across your ethnicity or your religious affiliation. That would eventually, sometimes you are in the position of majority on the one side, but on the other side, you will become a minority. And that's where the problem occur, because it happens everywhere. Akiko-san mentioned about the small river that divide, Patani, Thai Patani and Malaysia, divided by a very small river. And even if you go to the Holy Scriptures, the dispute between Israel and Jordan, they are divided by small Jordan River. It's exactly, when you show that picture, I remember the small river in Jordan, that divide Jordan and Israel. And then you could see the other side and so on, but they are divided across the religious line. And that would, at all times, create vulnerability of conflicts. So, I think we need to think about this, right? There was a book by I think an IR scholar a long time ago. The title I remember is the Sovereignty, Organized Hypocrisy, right? Because when we are talking about sovereignty, suddenly we're only concerned about our own people, that sometimes the suffering of the people outside our border would not, affect us, and that's sometimes we are thinking like, probably the great lessons from this is that, Patani is minority in Thailand. So if we don't want to see a minority being oppressed by majority, then we should not do those similar oppression when we are the majority to the minority that live in our territorial boundaries. So this is, I think, the strong message that actually I got from the presentation. Akiko-san trying to remind us. And lastly, I think trust is the key, when it comes to peace building. And then probably if we can include all voices, including women, and then all the vulnerable groups within the conflict areas, then peace, according to Akiko-san, would be more sustainable, right? Can be sustained, in the longer period of time. So, and lastly, I think one agenda that you have mentioned, I think we should include in our department is women and security, WPS, women, peace and security. In my previous work at CSIS, we ran that program, WPS, supported by embassies, and we did a lot of study. I think that would be a good program and a good agenda for our students here, women, peace and security, WPS, because that's, I think, in line with Indonesia's contribution.
Yes,
I think Japan and Indonesia are the two largest contributors of peacekeepers in the UN peacekeeping operation.
peacekeepers,
And Indonesia is one of the largest contributors of female peacekeepers. I think if you look at the data from the Indonesian Foreign Ministry website, you could find the figure that we are contributing a lot number of female peacekeepers. And then I think that is something worthy to be discussed. Now I open the floor for students or faculty members who have questions or has ideas that want to be discussed. Who wants to start first? Yes, Aldi, very quickly. Right. Introduce your name and your, I know you are Indonesian, but maybe Akiko-san could not tell where you are from. Like people in Ambon could not tell her religion.
Right?
Okay, I knew that almost Japanese has like two religions. Okay, thank you for your introductory discussion for this. And then I have been visiting Patani also in the university, Patani University.
Yeah.
That's really great. And then good experience for me. And then I will ask about how to measure the increasing of women voices in this case, and then what impact for the resolution within conflict. And then is it still related with the nationalism that the Thailand government insists to the Patani society? And then actually I have also a further question. How about the role of Patani University there? I think it will be good if we started if we start from the university, because we can get many rural ideas and how to resolve the problem, and or any rule to deal with this conflict, or about in the about the role of university, especially about the woman role, right? And then the relevant discussion about the relevant discussion about women in Maluku, women in Maluku, and the role of women in Maluku, or is this tribal case between Patani and Maluku? Yes, that's all. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much. So you visited Patani University?
Yes.
Ah, great. Actually, Patani University is also Islam,
Yeah, Islam.
university. And then, of course, I also visited. And then I even invite the lecturer, Lutfi, to Japan. So we were also, had a good relationship. And then especially like Patani University teaching the Islam, is also, of course, very important role, because the religion, of course, can lead peace. So this conflict is more, just I mentioned that the sovereignty or like identities of Malay culture or dignity, that kind of issues. But there are so many ways to solve the problem, So that may mean that the armed group want to solve this problem. That's why they put the bomb, right? But the peace dialogue, that is also another way to solve the problem. So now I want to, I'm always discuss with the Patani people. There are just so many ways to solve the problem. With your problem, it's not only using violence, without using violence, but there are so many ways to solve the problem. So that's why we were discussing how to do it. Maybe advocacy is one, internationalized issues are one, how to do the media also. Because no one know about Patani issues, right? So that is another thing. So many things that we can do, and they didn't try. So the religious university teaching religion also it's really important because religion can teach that without the violence, how to solve the problem, So that's why I think here also university and using a more intellectual capacity to analyze the conflict and then not to use the violence and leads to the peace. There are many ways, And then there are so many cases out of the Patani, all over the world, So that is also good to provide the university, giving a lot of case study. So today I didn't mention any academic argument, right? Because this is just a case studies. I wanted to show that. But that is also very important to learn, many case studies and then can compare with this case and that case, what is essence, So that's why university, of course, definitely a lot of role to provide academic way of, analyzing the conflict. So I think that is things and maybe, university has a lot of role.
All right, thank you. I think with the help of Sasakawa Peace Foundation, you can play that role too in the future.
Maybe I can add about the women's, the Maluku issue. Yeah, but in Maluku, it's a more conflict between community, Christian community versus Muslim community. But who started the dialogue between Muslim and Christian during the conflict? It's the woman who started first. Why? Because woman has a different identity as a mother. They are Muslim, and they are Muslim. We are Christians, for example, but we are saying mother. So if we are thinking about future Maluku, future Ambon, if continue this conflict, how about my children? They cannot go to the school for 3-4 years. What to do next? So many women, start to have discussion in a very secret place, the middle. It's a very dangerous at that time because they are in the conflict. Christian, if see the Christian and and the Muslim also kill the Christian. So it's a really dangerous period. But women bravely try to discuss what to do. So that is a really first initiative to have the bridge between the different community. Is a woman. So that is also in one small cases of the Maluku, but woman has a lot of the potential.
Yeah.
Yes.
You said in the last discussion that the voice of the woman is increasing.
Yes.
But how to measure it?
For example, during the COVID, that's why I see that a lot of the live Facebook live discussion, only women, women produce a lot of Facebook live. How to say? Stream, for example. Before we cannot see, but because of the training, because of the capacity building, and a lot of women create this kind of voice out. Then this year, during Ramadan, there are so many, during the Eid al-Fitr holidays, and Hari Raya, they get together and then have a big festival. But before, only men is in the front and talk. But this year, women also come and talk, So that is, for me, it's a big change. Because I just say that all the time, woman is follow. But man in the front, woman is follow. But now, of course, man is part, but woman also has a space to talk. So that is, I think, it's a really big change. Somehow can see, but the measurement, of course, cannot see 1-2 years, right? So have to have a little bit longer term. But I have a really much confidence that from those women can bring. I want to actually create a woman's agenda. They discuss and then they will make a woman's agenda from Patani, and then those agenda can bring to the peace table. That's what I want to push them. But I think they will do that automatically. So yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Ridwan raised his hand first, and then I'll go to Ibu Nidal. Ridwan.
Thank you, Pak Felix. Thank you, Dr. Horiba. I met you a few years ago. Basically, we are talking about the conflict in Southeast Asia, especially in Indonesia. In terms of the character, I think you mentioned about the same character between the Papua conflict and Patani conflict, because they are separatism issues.
Yeah.
Not like in Ambon, it's related with the communal conflict related to ethno-religious primordialism. I just want to ask more about the women's role in peace building in Patani. I visited Patani for my fieldwork few years ago. I have spent like 3 months for my master in Bangkok and Sydney at that time. And in one interview with Imam and some youths, they mentioned that in terms of the ideological view of the Muslim leader, they have seen that they have seen, to me, it's a bit conservative. So you mentioned in your slides about the women like to follow men, they cannot become leaders in public space. But I want to know from your experience in Patani, if we use the framework from John Paul Adler about the pyramid leaders, they are very nice leaders. So, which part do you contribute more about the leaders, and which part of the women organization in Patani work in the 3 layers? Thank you.
Thank you very much. According to John Paul Lederach, there is a track 1, track 3, and now I'm approaching actually track 3. Why? Because of the characteristic of the Patani conflict. It's very important to analyze the conflict itself. But this conflict, actually, the very much guerrilla warfare. So we don't know, for example, like a student like you, it may be armed group in Patani. So we cannot distinguish this is a BRN, this is not, or this is a BRN, this is not. No, even students, they also the member of the BRN in Patani. It's very common. So we cannot distinguish. Okay, but they live in the community, right? The community is the one who protects them. So if we reach to the top, but if we don't know the community, and we cannot reach to those BRN members. That's why, according to this analysis, I'm reaching to the community level. So the community level's women, actually, many of them are wife of the armed group. So the other wife of the armed group, and then if they understand that there are many ways to solve the problem. I mentioned that without using a violence, there are many ways to solve the problem, and we can do that also. No? Then it's really powerful because the husband is armed group and wife is, empowering and want to talk about peace. That's obviously influence to the husbands too. So that's why, because of the Patani conflict characteristic, then I approach to the track 3. But maybe if there are another, for example, Patani, the Maluku conflict, this is another dimension, more horizontal. So it's not the same as the Patani, it's vertical. But if the Ambon conflict, if within the, if I want to do something in Maluku, it's maybe I will reach to the religious leaders, for example. Because of the social structure, it's very much depend on the religious communities, So then if the Christian community, I will definitely reach to the religious leaders. But if the Muslim community, I will reach to the adult leader, customer leaders, cultural leaders, Raja or something. So it depends on how much you understand the field, Then maybe approach different with according to the, pyramid, for example. But I think that the Patani issue is the more, I actually is focusing on the community. But they definitely reach to the armed group. And these voices go to the top level of the armed group. Then I have a lot of experience already. That's my voices that reach to the top level of the BRN. I, confirm in Malaysia, something like that. So that's kind of thing that important to analyze that the field social structure. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you. Bu Nido.
Yeah. So beforehand, I would like to say thank you so much for a really great, presentation and insights shared. Just curious about your ideas. We know that there are groups of women who become among the armed men, like they were recruited and then they fight with guns and so on and so forth. Yeah. So this is another kind of representation of women. Maybe you will categorize it as violence, but according to their side of thinking, maybe they think they contribute to building peace.
Yes.
Something like that. That is my first question. Just your idea. Second one, maybe it's kind of methodological for the student, perhaps. You have done research in this so many years, and I believe you have this kind of pattern of like the strongest data that you've got to help you build your analysis process.
Yes.
Would you like to share a bit about that?
About the data, you mean that the how to do it?
You rely more the power of your data. Is it with interview about the participants, or just cross-checking literature? So which one is play more role?
Okay. Thank you very much. About the concept, mean that the perceptions, that the people this way, we say that it's a violence and this is a bad thing, for example, but for them, maybe violence is the only way to solve the problem, right? So that's why of course, the concept and, is different, but that's why it's important is dialogue, So what I'm thinking, and then maybe I'm also showing a lot that the other countries' cases, like Aceh case or the Mindanao case, So then there are many ways to solve this problem, and so that's kind of lesson learned together. I think it is very important and reach to the kind of common understanding. So of course, first it's different, totally different idea, but. And that's why it's a very long commitment. I think it's very important. We are now working 12 years for Patani conflict. So usually the many NGO cannot do, working in the one area very long time. But because of the Sasaga Peace Foundation, it's a kind of, we are donor organization also. We are also the doer, like actor also, but also kind of think tank too. So that's why we can have our own budget. That's why we can commit for a long time. That is really our strength. So that we can accompany them for a long time together. So that is, I think, very important. Not only just because of the conflict issues, it cannot solve just one day, So the Patani issues, we are accompanying, mean that working together more than 12 years now. But for example, the Mindanao case, for example, 50 years, 40 years, 50 years, right? From the conflict until leads to the agreement. For example. Colombia, 50 years, So it really takes a long time to reach somehow the agreement, of course, with the opponent. But that's why we really need some strong commitment for the field, I think.
Related to that, do you believe in the environmental trend, like intellectual trend or something like that, that fasten the process towards the peace building? Let's say nowadays we see a lot of
War.
a lot of war, a lot of support towards superwoman, like like the one we see so many in media, like encouraging women to be, So yeah, how do you?
Okay, I also mentioned something that man's understanding is the key. Male understanding mean that women need a model, because usually in the political field, also the social field, we cannot see the woman's leader a lot. So that's why it is really good that if we see the strong woman in front of the people and do something. Sure, it is good. But many women feel that, oh, I cannot do like that, I cannot be like her. But if there are so many models, because it's still leader is few, woman leader is very few. That's why focusing on the few people, then maybe it's a very strong or something. But if there are so many, variety of the leaders, not only necessarily in the front of the people and top is a leader, right? There are so many, kind of leaders. And if there are more models, then maybe I can do that, maybe I can do this. So that's actually important. Not necessary to have a very strong woman in front of the people and talk. Not only this. That is also good. But we need, among women, we need more model varieties. That's I think. So from the community, we encourage. I think it is also good to see a lot of variety of the women's leaders within the community.
All right, thank you. Oh, the other question on the methodology.
The methodology, yes. Well, I usually, because of the area studies, so based on the interview, field work, that is, for me, it's very important. And then I cannot say just only statistic, but because statistic sometimes cannot see the people's face. So the people's face is not there, then maybe missing something. That's why there are so many statistic data already. Some people do. That of course I will bring and then using this. But for me to making also program, also to have more conducting to understand the field, I prefer to. I more focusing on the field work and then have more communication with the people. Get some sense, But for that, it's so important to understand their culture, their religions, their way of life beforehand. So that's, I think, it's for me, it's very important. Yeah.
Thank you. I think that last part is very important for us in the academia. This is part of the dialogue because we have some
data. Yeah?
Some of us, die harder for certain methodology. Dialogue our methodology. Right? All right. Who raised their hand? Let me ask Ramita first, and then go to Dr. Surajuddin and Ali. Yes. Could you speak louder?
I'm talking about it So I interested in the academic work of the peace, educational and dialogue. So, what is the accuracy of this program, and what do you think about this program in the future? What is the impact, and in your opinion, what is the significant program for this institution in the future?
Thank you.
Conflict in Southeast Asia.
Yeah, you were saying that the network on the woman then.
Southeast Asia network of countries.
Okay, the one who Ibletno made again, right? Yeah, that is Ibletno. The Minister of Foreign Affairs here in Indonesia actually initiated to create this network. Then that's one, right? You were saying, yeah. Then of course all my friends are in that network, and then from Shadia, from Aceh also, and Mariam from Philippines, and Emma Leslie from Cambodia. Many are within this community. I think this is again another thing that we can say, the role model. Role model as a woman, as a negotiator, as a mediator, as a peace builder. They get together and discuss. So that is for me. We actually this year maybe we will support their network. This year. So I mean that's why this is also role model for the women who are middle of the negotiations. Then they have experience. So those experienced women speak out and they share their experience. I think it is very important. So then the women also can learn from that, and maybe then I can do that. So but we cannot imagine what they are doing, right? During conflict. So I think it is for that it's very important. And another one in the Southeast Asia Women Peace Builders Network, which is we also support since for 2 years. The base right now is among Indonesia maybe. So the secretariat will change, but Malaysia, Thailand, Indonesia, and Philippines, they are creating this network, and then Sasaka Peace Foundation also supporting this network. But that is another thing that women's peace builders, experience. They share, what is the peace building, what is woman's role. So they are discussing a lot. So on the web page, there are a lot of stories, so you can check it. Then that is also another thing that, I also can do this, or I can participate that, So that is also very important.
Thank you,
Yeah.
Ali. And then before we go back to this side, after Ali, then Moin.
Yes,
Just
please.
throw your
Maybe
question.
I can get the first. Yeah,
the two
two
first.
first. Yeah.
My question is about, I'm curious about the role of women in conflict, because Yemen actually in conflict.
Yes.
Are women there play two? One is the base, building a base, like you said, and the other role supported the conflict actually by giving supply to the soldiers, information. They use women to give information to the other side, and also they transfer weapons from the government side to the rebel side, because in our culture, women can't be inspection, can be searched. So the women also play another role, but there is some factors. In what extent those factors apply in the women role, like culture, level of education, and also the women involvement in society movement.
Yeah.
All right, thank you, Ali. And then the second one from Moin.
Thank you so much for this insightful presentation. First of all, I want to ask, what is your motivation to conduct this research? And my second question is, how can we understand this Patani, this conflict in the perspective, in the framework of Sri Lankan conflict? Sinhala versus this Tamil Hindus, and in the perspective of Pakistan against Balochi Muslims, and in the perspective of Myanmar against Rohingya Muslims.
Yes.
All right.
Very interesting.
Thank you.
About Yemen, it's really, that what you just say, that the woman has a lot of role, also creating war, to the violence, to the war. That's why, that I also say that in Patani also, the woman, the husband is the armed group. So woman, of course, helping husband to go to the war, right? So that's why if we, change their mindset, if women change their mindset, then it's really effective for the peace. That's why we are encouraging to train women to have a new perspective, and they can recognize themselves what they can do for peace. Not just they are telling to do this and then they do. More they have an independent idea to decide what to do. That is, I think, very important. Even Patani also, but also your country. Then about the Sri Lanka or Kashmir or whatever, there are so many cases in South Asia also about the conflict. Yeah? So very similar, of course, just Professor Philip said, which is a majority and which is a minority. Sri Lanka case, Tamil is actually majority in the whole South Asia, but in Sri Lanka, they are minority, right? Then the Sinhala is strong, and now Rajapaksa is more, stronger. Then another more oppression to the Tamil again. So of course they have a lot of link to the India and other part, and Tamil people a lot free to come Canada, America, Europe, Germany. So they have a more network than Sinhala, for example, right? But within the nation states, they are minority. So that's why it's another thing that we really need to know what is nation states. And then that is also that it leads to the Russian-Ukrainian war also and many things, So that's why I think in the university, it's really rethink again what is nation state is. And many people die because of the nation state, right? That is also very interesting phenomena. That, for example, Japan, during the World War II, many people died for Japan, right? But for what is Japan? What is nation state about? So that is, I think, it's very important to discuss. And maybe motivation for the peace, because I'm Japanese, and then I'm I don't have clear religion. So I was thinking that during when I was in high school, it was a lot of conflict between Bosnia, Herzegovina. They call religious war. Greek Orthodox, Catholic, Muslims fight each other. They are similar ethnic group, but different religion they fight. Like Ambon, religious is was the issue. So I thought that the Japanese, I don't belong to any religion, so maybe I can be the mediator. That's what I thought.
Thank you. That's very interesting. I have Dr. Sirajuddin and then Dr. Rifki Muna. Yes, pass it on.
Thank you, Patani, and thank you, Dr. Horiba, for your very insightful and informative presentation. It has been long. I haven't heard news related to debate about Patani. So I thought the problem is solved, but actually there are still many problems on the ground.
Yes.
I have a couple of questions. One, based on your real-working experience, what do you think of the the key barrier to peace in the region? I mean, because it has been the conflict has took a long time, and certainly it is difficult to solve the problem only one good step right now. But given the length of the problem, so what do you think of the barrier? Is it because of the from the government side that the policy on the concession is too small for the Patani? Or is it from the point of view of the Patanese people, well, they have something that the government cannot give them, or what is actually the problem? At least from your stories, it seems now we have three groups: the Thai government, and then the Patanese people in general, and the rebel. So, what is actually the key here? And I think that the second one is about the women. Now, we have different types of conflict. At least in Ambon, we have, as Mas Riban says, it's horizontal one. Now in Patani, we have vertical one.
Yeah.
So given different types of conflict, what do you think of different types of women role required for them to play effective role in building peace? Thank you.
Thank you very much. So quickly, that the main barrier is, of course, political will by the Thai government. If Thai government, if you see the Aceh case or East Timor case, the top leader decision and change many things, right? So the political will is definitely there. Have to have political will, but lack of political will to solve the problem is the really biggest boundaries actually for the peace. But in Patani, there are a lot of fragmentation of the Patani community. So that means that among the armed group, there is a pro dialogue, anti-dialogue, or within Patani also there are a lot of fragmentation. That is also another biggest barrier actually. So it's have to have a unite and then have a more solidarity among Patani. That is one thing. And then also related the woman's role. As this presentation, I already explained that women have know many things what happened in the field. So communal conflict, of course, woman can initiate as a, I just mentioned about Ambon, mothers, as a different identity focusing and then can do something, But in the Patani case, not like the same as Ambon, but at least women know the situations. That's why the correcting those problems, those, the challenges within Patani through woman's perspective, that is really helpful to understand the society, So that's why, I just said woman's agenda, for Patani. That kind of things are very important and have to listen, those Thai government also, the armed group also, So that way, maybe women can contribute for the peace. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Ifimuna.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Horiba, thank you very much for your presentation. It's very rich data from the ground and also your experience and working with women in Patani area, which is very, very important thing. My response and question is actually very close to what Pastor Judin already mentioned, especially the fact that this conflict is vertical conflict. So we need to work at the different levels of advocacy, if we might say advocacy. You have been working a lot at the ground, on the ground. But my question is also conflict in Patani, to solve it, we need the blessing from the kings, from the government. Without the blessing from the government to solve the problem, seems that conflict in Patani will continue forever. So my question is, would the Japanese government as well as Sasakawa Foundation has worked and assured the Thai government in this regard to understand the actual problem and also the demands of the people in the southern area. So I think that would be very important because several cases require a different approach. Experience from Aceh might be useful for Thailand. And also the Indonesian government approach, even though it is not yet solved, in the case of Papua, might also be useful. Because in the case of Papua, central government has also paid a lot on the issues of dialogue. The other issues at the lower level is regarding to the education of the people. Education, what I mean is to help and to reduce the levels of grievances by understanding the context. Is there any kind of scholarship, for example, that you can given to the people of the southern Thai, for example, to study in Japan or in this case of Japan? Because I think it will have, like in the case of, if I might share with you, we have largest Muslim organization in Indonesia called
Muhammadiyah. Yes, yesterday I met the secretary of Muhammadiyah. Didn't say that. Yeah, no. Exactly.
In year 2012, as I remember, there are about 300 scholarships given to them to study in Indonesian at Muhammadiyah University, not to study Islamic studies, but to study engineering, different kind of that kind of. And I think that would be very good. I just checked to my colleague at Muhammadiyah today that they still have that number about 300 Patani study here. Not under, most of them they are do, So I think that would be also good things for us to discuss, to looking at that matter.
Yes, thank you so much. Thank you. I also met, just I said that the section of the Muhammadiyah yesterday I met. Then he also mentioned about this, and I already recognize this a lot because many Patani people come back from Indonesia and then study in Muhammadiyah University. So, about talking about Japan, just very briefly, Japan don't want to touch the political issues. The Patani conflict is very much sensitive for the Thai government. So Japanese government didn't do anything about Patani. Okay, that's why we cannot focus on. I mean, we mean the Japanese government cannot focus on the scholarship only for Patani, or either. I mean, the Japanese government didn't do anything for Patani. Okay, but we are NGOs, non-governmental organization, and then of course I cannot say all what I'm doing because there are a lot of discrete work. So of course I'm reaching with the Thai government, also Malaysia government, and then also the armed group. So there are many things going on, but just I mentioned that the political will is very important. And then of course in Thailand, king is a superpower, meaning that it's very significant power, and that is really difficult to reach. That's for sure. But important thing is really the political will, and then to reach to the Thai government. And this year maybe or early next year will happen the general election in Thailand. That is also another very important moment for Patani too. So I'm watching the Thai government, Thailand politics. Thank you, Jay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. I think our time is up exactly as planned, 3:30. I think this is fascinating because if I may tell you, we've been doing this Brownbag series. This is number 7, and you are the first female speaker in the Brownbag series. Very on topic, and you are the first female speaker, and you're talking about the role of women in conflict issues, which is, I think, very important. And I hope that the students and those of you who are watching this from YouTube streaming learn a lot from Akiko-san, from her rich experience doing research and real work policy advocacy. I think that's I admire you for that, because that's a very difficult thing to do, is combining two things, and on a very sensitive issue. Lastly, on the issue of Patani and southern Thailand, to give credit to the Thai government, though, there was a figure from southern Thailand who became prominent political figure and worked for peace building in Southeast Asia, and he's been admired until today. The late Surin Pitsuwan, former foreign minister of Thailand. He is well known. He is admired across Southeast Asia. He's one of the most successful foreign minister of Thailand. He was educated in Santren in southern Thailand, according to him. At one point, I got a chance to talk with him on his personal life, and he was the Secretary General of ASEAN.
Yes.
And then so he knows a lot about Indonesia. He knows a lot about conflicts and so on. I think he's been trying as well.
His PhD on Patani.
His PhD on Patani at Harvard University. And he's one of the most prominent figures from southern Thailand. So I think what I'm saying is, right, as Akiko-san mentioned, conflicts have many faces. And also, Dr. Sirojudin mentioned about that conflicts have many causes. And as Akiko-san reminds us, conflict has many ways to be resolved, right? And we are opting for non-violent ways of solving conflicts. And that would require participation from, in terms of preventive diplomacy. The government is doing their first track diplomacy, right? University think tanks like us. This is not CSIS, this is university. Think tank and university like us doing a role in second track diplomacy, and Akiko-san working on the third track diplomacy, which is working on at the grassroots level, which with her experience, she's been able to bring it up, through the track 2, like this universities gathering, as well as to the track 1. So I hope that we are going to have more collaboration with you and with the university, with students from many countries that I think would also very keen to learn, because most of us coming from developing countries, we are very prone to conflicts. And your experience, because so many forces at play, right? We want development, we want state building. At the same time, we are pressured by the more developed countries. And then life is not as easy as it looks like, right? And we need investment. We are trapped in geopolitical fights and so on and so forth. So of course, then we certainly need some knowledge about conflict resolution that is happening in our respective countries. Thank you very much for your time, and please give a round of applause to. Thank you.
Thank you.